Humanity was never meant to survive the stars until we made it inevitable. For centuries, the galaxy's brightest minds had debated the resilience of Earth's species. To others in the concord of sentient systems, humanity seemed fragile, teetering on the edge of irrelevance. And yet, as countless civilizations rose and fell amid the void, humanity endured. No one noticed how they retreated into silence. No one cared. But now their silence had broken, and with it, the fragile balance of interstellar power. What had humanity been building in the shadows? And why now, after years of isolation, did they return to the fold? The answers to these questions weren't comforting. They had not been idle. Humanity had been sharpening the blade of their survival instinct, reforging themselves into something entirely alien to those who had once called them allies. The first glimpse of humanity's re-emergence came as a flicker on the galaxy's outermost defense grids, a swarm of vessels unlike any seen before, sleek, angular, and humming with a faint, eerie bioluminescence cut through the darkness of space. They moved as if alive, their unpredictable patterns defying every algorithm the Concorde's fleets relied upon. Aboard the Kensha battlecruiser, Admiral Tarek Voln watched the holographic feed with growing unease. "What are we looking at?" one of his officers asked, her voice thin with disbelief. "Human ships," Tarek replied, though the words felt foreign in his mouth, "but not as we remember them." The holographic feed zoomed in, revealing something more unsettling. The hulls of these ships pulsed faintly, almost as though they were breathing. As they moved, they emitted signals that mimicked the patterns of predatory organisms. This wasn't just technological innovation, it was a declaration. For humanity, survival was no longer a right. It had become a weapon. The Kensha battlecruiser drifted in silence as the swarm of human vessels executed maneuvers that defied comprehension. Admiral Tarek Voln's hands tightened around the edge of the command console. Every instinct screamed that what he was witnessing shouldn't be possible. "Analysis," he barked, his voice cutting through the tense quiet of the bridge. A junior officer stammered, scanning streams of data. Their movement patterns, it's almost as if they're adapting in real time. Every shift in our scans triggers a recalibration in their formation. "Biological systems?" Tarek asked sharply. "Unclear. They're emitting organic signatures, but the energy outputs are off the scale." "Whatever these ships are, Admiral, they aren't traditional spacecraft." Tarek's gaze snapped back to the holographic projection. The human fleet moved like a school of predators, weaving between obstacles and dodging simulated Concorde. Defenses with precision no sentient pilot could achieve. The larger vessels of the fleet, their flagship analogues, were almost static, broadcasting signals that seemed to coordinate the smaller units around them. "Contact with Concorde." "Command," Tarek ordered. "They need to see this." Before the officer could respond, a pulse rippled through the hologram. One of the Concorde's outer defense satellites, a massive structure bristling with plasma turrets, flickered briefly before going offline. Then another and another. "What are they doing?" one of the officers whispered. "They're disabling us," the analyst replied, her tone filled with disbelief. "No weapons fired, they're taking out command nodes, communication relays, everything but the core infrastructure." Tarek's stomach twisted. This wasn't a display of power. It was a demonstration of dominance. Humanity wasn't here to negotiate. They were here to announce their ascension, and as the last satellite fell, the eerie bioluminescence of their ship seemed to intensify, casting an otherworldly glow across the void. "Admiral," the ECOMS officer interrupted, her voice trembling. "We're receiving a signal from them." Tarek hesitated. "Put it through." The bridge fell silent as a single, cold, yet oddly resonant voice filled the air. "Observe carefully. This is merely the beginning." Are you as captivated as we are by humanity's mysterious transformation and the looming galactic threat? If you're enjoying this journey into the unknown, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Join us as we unravel the secrets of survival in a universe on the brink of annihilation. Let's dive deeper together, because the story is just beginning. Tarek's jaw clenched as the voice faded, leaving the bridge in an oppressive silence. The bioluminescent human fleet loomed on the holographic display, still and foreboding, like a predator waiting for its prey to react. "Signal them back," Tarek commanded, breaking the tension. "Demand an explanation for this display." The communications officer hesitated. "Admiral, the signal format they're using is unconventional. It's not encoded for our systems. It's almost as if it's designed for us to listen, not to respond." Frustration gnawed at him. This wasn't how wars were fought. Communication was negotiation, intimidation, compromise. But this was a declaration without room for rebuttal. "Keep scanning their fleet," he ordered. "There has to be a vulnerability somewhere. If they wanted to attack, they'd have done it by now. This is a psychological game." But deep down, Tarek wasn't sure. The way the human ships moved, the way they pulsed with eerie organic light, it didn't feel like a game. It felt like an entirely new way of thinking. As the crew worked frantically to analyze the fleet, a new alert flashed on the main display. "Admiral, one of their larger vessels is deploying something," the tactical officer called out. The room tensed as a sleek, oval-shaped object detached from the flagship and began drifting toward the Kensha battlecruiser. Its surface shimmered, shifting colors like liquid metal. "Intercept it," Tarek snapped. "We can't," replied the officer. "It's emitting a dampening field. Our systems it's overriding our targeting protocols." Before anyone could react further, the object stopped mid-space and projected a blinding light. The holographic display flared, shifting into a cascade of unfamiliar symbols and diagrams. A moment later, the symbols resolved into images of planets, fleets, and battles that none of the Concord officers recognized. "What is this?" whispered an officer. Tarek's eyes narrowed. He recognized the purpose, if not the specifics. "It's a map," he said grimly, "but not of our territories. They're showing us their war, the one they've already fought." The final image froze on the display. A scorched world, its surface blackened and cracked, surrounded by remnants of fleets eerily similar to the Zarkon Imperium. "Admiral," the comms officer said, her voice shaky. "Message from Concord Command. They're requesting an immediate status update." Tarek didn't answer immediately. His gaze was locked on the projection, on the ruined planet. Humanity wasn't here to intimidate. They were here to warn. And whatever they had fought out there in the void, it was far from over. The silence on the Kensha battlecruiser was broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. Admiral Tarek Voln stood motionless, staring at the image of the ruined planet projected before them. The implications of the display churned in his mind, raising questions that no one on the bridge dared to voice. "Prepare an encrypted transmission to Concord Command," Tarek said at last, his voice measured but tense. "Send them everything we've seen, every detail." "Yes, Admiral," the comms officer replied, her fingers moving swiftly over the console. Before the transmission could be sent, the holographic display shifted again. The image of the scorched world dissolved into a new projection, a fleet. It was vast, larger than anything the Concord or even the Zarkon Imperium had ever fielded, and at its center was a vessel that dwarfed the rest, a construct so massive it seemed more like a small moon than a ship. "What are we looking at?" an officer whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the bridge. Tarek's brow furrowed. The fleet wasn't human. Its angular, jagged designs were utterly alien. But something in the way it moved, Coordinated, efficient, ruthless, felt eerily familiar. "They've faced this before," Tarek murmured, "and they survived." The projection zoomed in, showing a battle already in progress. Human ships, sleek and glowing with that same bioluminescence, fought against the alien fleet. Their movements were precise, almost surgical, targeting weak points in the enemy. Vessels with unerring accuracy. But for every enemy ship destroyed, 3 more seemed to take its place. "This isn't a battle," the tactical officer said, her tone grim. "It's a massacre." The final image showed the enormous alien flagship releasing a beam of light so powerful that it cleaved an entire planet in 2. The screen went dark, leaving only the cold glow of the human fleet still hovering outside. A new signal came through. This, one more direct. The symbols on the screen rearranged themselves into the Concorde's universal language. "Prepare. They are coming." The words hung in the air like a death knell. The bridge of the Kensha battlecruiser erupted into activity as the chilling message flickered across the display. Admiral Tarek Voln's voice cut through the chaos. "Silence!" he commanded, and the crew immediately returned to tense focus. Tarek's mind raced. Humanity's return wasn't an act of pride or conquest. It was a response, a desperate measure against something far greater than the Concorde or even the Zarkon Imperium. "Are we certain the message is meant for us?" the tactical officer asked, breaking the silence. Tarek turned to her, his gaze sharp. "It's not a warning, Lieutenant. It's an ultimatum. Whatever they faced, they're telling us we'll face it next." The projection shifted again, this time showing a live feed of the human fleet. They had not moved an inch from their formation, their ships pulsating faintly in the dark void. One of the larger vessels, an apparent flagship, began emitting a slow, deliberate sequence of flashes. "Admiral," the communications officer interjected, "it's a request for direct communication. They're asking to link with our systems." Tarek hesitated. Allowing an external connection could compromise their ship's defenses, but denying it might escalate tensions further. "Secure the channel," he ordered. "Keep it isolated from critical systems." The bridge lights dimmed as the link was established. The holographic display flickered, and the outline of a humanoid figure appeared, faceless, featureless, but undeniably human. Its voice was calm yet resonant, carrying a weight that sent chills down Tarek's spine. "Your survival depends on what happens next," it said. "The Concorde is unprepared. The Zarkon are irrelevant. Only those who adapt will endure." Tarek leaned forward. "What are we adapting to? What is this enemy you've shown us?" The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, the display shifted again, showing a series of complex diagrams and star charts. At the center of the charts was a singularity, a gravitational anomaly, unlike anything in the Concorde's databases. Around it, remnants of shattered fleets and dead worlds. "They do not invade," the voice continued. "They consume." The image faded, leaving the bridge in darkness once more. Then a final message appeared. "You have 3 cycles. Decide." Tarek exhaled slowly, his thoughts heavy. Humanity had returned not as allies, but as harbingers of survival or extinction. The weight of the ultimatum lingered on the bridge of the Kensha battlecruiser. Admiral Tarek Voln stood motionless, his thoughts spiraling as he replayed the message in his mind. 3 cycles. A deadline for a decision that could reshape the fate of the Concorde and possibly the galaxy itself. "Admiral," the tactical officer broke the silence, "should we inform the rest of the Concorde?" Tarek's jaw tightened. "Command already knows what we've transmitted, but sharing this too widely could ignite panic. Until we understand more, this stays between us and Command." As the officers exchanged uneasy glances, the display flickered again. This time, the human fleet was on the move. The eerie bioluminescence of their vessels intensified, and their formation shifted into something resembling a spiral, tight, controlled, and deliberate. "They're positioning themselves," the tactical officer muttered. But for what? Before anyone could respond, the sensors flared with an incoming alert. A fleet was approaching, massive, angular, unmistakably Zarkon. "Enemy ships inbound," the comms officer reported, panic creeping into her voice. "They've entered the sector." "Battle stations," Tarek barked. "Prepare to intercept." The holographic display expanded, revealing the full scale of the Zarkon force. Dozens of warships advanced, their configurations optimized for destruction. But as the crew scrambled to prepare defenses, the human fleet didn't react. "What are they doing?" one officer hissed. Tarek frowned. "They're watching." The Zarkon fleet surged forward, targeting the Kensha. First, plasma bolts and kinetic rounds filled the void, converging on the Concorde ship. But before impact, the human fleet moved. Like a predator pouncing, the bioluminescent vessels darted into action. They weaved between enemy fire with impossible precision, slicing through Zarkon ships with surgical strikes. The Kensha crew watched in stunned silence as the once formidable enemy fleet was dismantled in mere minutes. "They're not just fighting," the tactical officer whispered. "They're dissecting them." As the last Zarkon ship disintegrated, the human fleet returned to formation, their glowing hulls pulsing rhythmically. The comms officer turned to Tarek, pale and trembling. "Admiral, another message." "Put it through," Tarek said, his voice tight. The faceless figure appeared again. "You see now. Strength without understanding is weakness. Adaptation is survival." Tarek clenched his fists. "You call this survival? You turn them into an example." The figure leaned forward slightly, its presence looming. "Examples are necessary. You must decide, join or be consumed." And with that the feed cut, leaving the bridge bathed in the cold glow of the stars. The Kensha battlecruiser floated in silence, surrounded by the wreckage of the Zarkon fleet. Admiral Tarek Voln's heart pounded as the human vessels returned to their eerie stillness, glowing faintly in the void. The ultimatum hung heavy. In his mind, join or be consumed. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we can't face them. If this is what they're capable of, the Concorde doesn't stand a chance." Tarek's gaze remained fixed on the holographic display where fragments of Zarkon ships drifted aimlessly. The humans hadn't just destroyed their enemy, they had annihilated them with precision that bordered on cruelty. It was clear now, humanity wasn't offering an alliance. They were dictating terms. "We have to act," Tarek said finally, turning to his crew. "But we can't afford to choose blindly. I want every detail of that singularity they showed us analyzed. What they've faced might explain their methods, their transformation." The analysts worked furiously, decrypting the star charts left by the human message. Within moments, the room was filled with overlapping projections, gravitational anomalies, dead star systems, and one ominous point at the galaxy's edge. "It's not just a singularity," one analyst murmured. "It's spreading." Tarek stepped closer. "Spreading?" "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice trembling. "This anomaly doesn't consume planets or ships. It erases them. What's left behind isn't debris, it's nothing, empty space." A cold dread settled over the room. Tarek's mind raced. The humans hadn't faced an enemy. They had faced annihilation itself. The comms officer's voice cracked through the tension. "Admiral, incoming transmission days from Concorde Command." "On screen," Tarek ordered. The hologram shifted to reveal a council chamber. Concorde leaders stared back at him, their faces pale and resolute. "Admiral Voln," one began, "we've reviewed the data. Humanity's actions are dangerous, but their warnings cannot be ignored. The Council has voted. You are authorized to make contact and negotiate. Whatever it takes, the Concorde must survive. Tarek hesitated, his thoughts a storm of doubt and fear. Outside, the human fleet pulsed rhythmically, their ultimatum looming. Whatever decision he made next would seal the fate of billions. The Kenshir battlecruiser loomed in the silent void, a fragile beacon of life in a galaxy on the brink of destruction. Admiral Tarek Voln stood rigid, the weight of his decision pressing against his chest. Humanity's ultimatum echoed in his mind: join or be consumed. The singularity wasn't a distant threat, it was a countdown to oblivion. "Open a channel to the human fleet," Tarek ordered, his voice steady despite the storm within. The holographic figure appeared once more, its featureless form emanating an air of cold authority. "Your decision, Admiral," it intoned. Tarek's jaw tightened. "You've shown us the enemy, the singularity. But your methods, this isn't survival. It's domination. You've turned yourselves into something no different from the void you claim to fight." The figure remained silent for a moment before responding, its tone almost amused. "You misunderstand. We adapted because there was no other choice. You face extinction, Admiral, and the Concorde clings to outdated notions of unity. Adaptation is survival. Hesitation is death." Tarek stepped closer to the display. "And what does adaptation mean to you? Submission or something more?" The hologram flickered, revealing the vast human fleet, glowing brighter as if in response to his words. "It means evolution. The singularity cannot be stopped with weapons or fleets. It devours strength. Only those who evolve, who become more than what they were, can endure its approach." Tarek exhaled sharply. He knew the truth. The Concorde's survival depended on embracing this new paradigm. But at what cost? "Admiral," the tactical officer interrupted, panic in her voice. "The singularity, it's accelerating. It's entering this sector." The display shifted, showing the void rippling with unnatural force. The singularity loomed, an endless maw consuming the stars themselves. Tarek turned to his crew, his resolve hardening. "Transmit this to Concorde Command. We accept humanity's offer. Prepare the fleet for integration." The holographic figure spoke one final time, its voice carrying a chilling finality. "Then you have chosen survival. The transformation begins now." Outside, the human fleet erupted in a blinding wave of light, engulfing the Kenshir and the Concorde ships nearby. In that moment, Tarek realized that survival wasn't just a choice, it was a rebirth. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's choice was clear. But what would you have done in the face of extinction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story left you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more tales that push the boundaries of imagination. Because in the end, evolution isn't just survival, it's the only way forward.